Hey guys, Dave Smith here, and this is the first episode of Ask Dave Anything. What we notice when customers come to visit is they get a chance to kind of ask inside questions. Mad Dog and Nicole set up Instagram, Facebook, the Fact 5 forums, places where you can post questions, and if the questions keep rolling, I'll keep answering them. Factory 5, the first question was from Ben R. on Facebook. He said, I think most of us would like to hear that you're putting resources back into finishing the design of the F9 and working towards production. Let me give you some the quick answer is the F9 is not in production, and there's a good likelihood that it will not be in production for at least another year or 2 years. And let me give you the background on that. The F9 was made to be the successor to the GTM. The GTM obviously is a mid-engine using Corvette powertrain. Well, guess what? Corvette's got a mid-engine car. Also, the GTM was highly technical. The transaxle's hard to get. The G50 Porsche used to be a couple grand. Now they're real expensive. So the decision to discontinue the GTM was one, because of those challenges on the car, and the focus was, I asked Jim, I want you to design a front engine car that has a mid-engine look. Now that's a really tough ask, and Jim did a great job. He worked with a designer, Phil Frank. They came up with a body design. What we learned in the F9 is that no matter what you do with scale models, CAD, drawings, even virtual reality, is that when you see the car in real life, that's the only way to judge whether the car is good enough, and it's not good enough. It looks great and everything, but the people who have seen the car in real space, the nose of the car is just too big for the rest of the car, and it's something that everybody's noticed, and it takes a while to look at it before you realize it. So redesigning the nose, the designer was in love with the current design, doesn't want to change it. That means that it's up to our guys to reshape and cut about 1.5 feet of length and girth off the front. If you look at the car, it kind of, from the trailing edge of the door, it kind of gets wider. Reshaping that is at least a 6-month full-time project. So a year, 2 years minimum. And that's if we do it. There's a chance that we don't, because remember, there's a whole balance between what I want to do and what I have to do. We've been here for almost 30 years, and as much as you love cars, if you love cars, you also love business behind cars to make sure you're in business for people you buy your products. So that's the answer on the F9. And guys have been asking it over and over, and I'll just keep giving the same answer. If there's more substantial progress on the F9, if we start shaping, then I'll let you guys know. Lauren M. wrote an email asking, and this is similar to the GTM and the F9 question, what is the future of the 818? I love my 818. I was bummed when it was discontinued before I could buy a kit. Then by chance I got a kit used from someone who had never even started it. Fast forward to 2 years, and I'm almost daily driving it, autocrossing it every chance I get. What's the future looking like for this great car and ordering parts like the hardtop? The world needs more cars with lightness and simplicity at their core. Lauren, all of our cars, that philosophy, except for the big truck, is lightness at the core. The Mark IV you can throw into curves and autocross really successfully, but the mid-engine 818 was discontinued along with the GTM. There's no plans to revive it, and that's because now we'll continue to sell parts for it. So hardtop replacement parts, you don't have to worry about. Autocross the crap out of it and bang it up, and we'll always have your back on replacement parts. But in terms of the future, the Subarus that was designed for the donor car, and there's a later question about donor cars, it's hard to find, and they were easy 10 years ago. So the donor source pool of WRX's Subarus is getting hard. So we decided that also it's a modern car and it needed to be refreshed. The design needed a Gen 2 or a Gen 3, right? So for all those reasons, we say, hey, let's take it out of production right now. If we bring either the GTM or, your question, the 818 back into production, they're going to be redesigned. So there's no chance they're going to come back in their current form. We would want to take another bite at the apple. If you look at body shapes and styles, supercars and sports cars almost go in these decades-long, progression. There's a look and a feel to a 90s supercar. There's a look and a feel to a 2000 supercar. If you look at a Ford GT, there's aeromotive design now in supercars. So there's a real obligation of ours to keep the designs current. So while the core chassis may stay the same, suspension, maybe we'd go with different running gear. So 818 is not going to come back into production, but we got your back on replacement parts. KM on Facebook said, what is the airspeed of a laden swallow? I think that was Monty Python. You didn't specify Africa African or European, so I can't answer the question. The next question is from Noberto F. He sent an email saying, questions from a race dad of a 9-year-old. What donor cars are you looking for in upcoming projects? How do you prioritize specific cars to be donors? What age would you recommend visiting the build school? And would you ever consider doing one on the West Coast, a build school, I assume? Thank you. I plan on doing a Project Fact 5 car with my son soon. I mean, in reverse order, the build school is going to stay in Mott. They've done a great job. I'd love to have to be in areas that are easier to get to, but Mott's going to do it. They've done it for almost 20 years. Great organization, great teaching. It's worth the road trip out there. In terms of doing a build school with your son and a project, 9 years old is good. I know a lot of guys have done it with the younger kids and a little bit older. I think the kids get more out of it when they're approaching their teenage years. But either way, when you're done with the project, your kid's going to have grown up during that time, and that's one of the cool things about a Factory 5. The first part of your question, Roberto, on donor cars, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. What I do is, we look at ideas for new products. Obviously, there's classics that don't really change much, like the Cobra and the Coupe. And then there's cars like the 818, the GTM, the new truck project. And you're balancing always, what running gear and what parts are out there and available, are in production, are affordable, are tough and performance-based. But what I do is I give Jim the design goals of what I'm looking for, and then he's going to plug it in. So if and when donor parts are applicable, then they swoop in. Like with the XTF, we're using the whole truck. We're not using the body and the frame, but everything else comes along for the ride. So it's really on a case-by-case basis on donor parts. There are some great donor cars out there. Our company started with the Mustang. We use the Corvette on the GTM. I know of a few guys still using Mustang parts today, but I hope that answers your question. Michael sent an email asking, in your experience, what is the most important when you start such a car manufacturer? In your experience, what is the most important thing when you start such a car manufacturing company? I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, I think, I always tell people when they want to start their own company, I say, come on in, the water's fine. It's really difficult. It's not for everyone. I think you obviously start with something you love to do. It makes it really easy because you work hard at doing something you love and you're not really working. But you got to treat the car business as a serious business. I have as much an obligation to build great cars and performance and safety as I do to build a great company that has, long-lasting legs that'll last. If someone buys a product from us, we want to be around 30 years later, right? So that means being a student of business and understanding the biology of business as much as the performance and engineering of the vehicles. So I think you gotta, no matter what your business is, you better know, your basics in business, how to run a business, pay your bills, balance the books. Ask yourself a serious question. Are you a balance sheet guy, or are you a cash flow guy? Your cash flow guy is your maverick, your risk taker, your guy who's going to go out there and do great things and use cash flow to make it happen. A balance sheet guy is a little more conservative and build assets, build a long-standing company, invest in the company. I'm a little bit of both, but I don't want to tell you which one I am. A bunch of questions on the GT40. Shane L. wrote, hey Dave, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but when can we expect a GT40 from Factory 5? I'm about to pull the trigger on one from another company, or even possibly a Daytona Coupe, but if I knew one was coming from FFR, I would definitely wait. There has been some development on the GT40, and remember, new product development is always a battle. You want to put new product ideas against each other and see which one comes out on top. The GT40, I think Ford in their 2004 to 2006-7 GT40, the Ford GT, did it right by scaling the car up. The existing replicas out there for GT40s, we looked really hard in 2000. It was really the precursor to the GTM. The GT40 as a pure replica, as it stands right now, has several things that make it a bad donor car, a bad kit car. Basically, the real estate management of the car, because it's such a small, started out as a Lola chassis and body, there's nowhere for the fuel tanks to go when they put that big V8 in. So now you got outboard fuel tanks where if you were hit from a side, not only are you crushed to death, but you're also burned alive. So the layout of the GT40 and the restriction in terms of size for where the fuel tanks can go are a huge problem. Visibility is another problem. A lot of these GT40 replicas, you see them out in the market, and they have 500 miles on them because they're really not fun to drive something that's that fast that's hard to see out of. I think with the GTM, we addressed some of the scalar issues. We're looking at the GT40 right now. It would be a competitive project to the F9. I don't have any news for you. I think by our 30th anniversary, we'll have some really big announcements to make. You know, we want to celebrate our 30th anniversary, and that's next summer at our open house. Maybe a few highlights at SEMA. But right now there's no progress on the GT40, but it's being looked at very carefully. The Daytona Coupe, just build a Daytona Coupe. It's the best car we make. It's my favorite car anyway. Vince K asked how your daughter's doing. You guys may know that Nicole was diagnosed with colon cancer a couple years ago. She did chemotherapy, had surgery. Nicole, how you doing? 4 clear scans. Yep, here she is. I'm working with Nicole and Mad Dog here on the video. But thanks for asking. Family first, and Nicole's done really well. Thank you very much for all your thoughts, prayers, positive stoke. She's read all the emails and Facebook posts, and it means a lot. So that's it. Next question. Last question, Jimmy Hemphill on Facebook. What are you most grateful for? I don't have a 45-minute time slot, but you know, a great priest who's actually flying out from Michigan to officiate my daughter's wedding this June, Father Pete, says, you know, if you think about what you don't have, you'll never have enough. You know, and I think the example was a billionaire who had a yacht who was not as long as the next billionaires who wanted to build a whole new yacht because he wasn't happy. But if you think about what you're grateful for, you'll always be happy. I'm obviously grateful for this company and the people that work here. Delivered a lot of blessings to my family. I mean, look at my daughter, you know, and our family has prospered so much. But also I'm grateful for my family. Obviously things that all of you guys are grateful for. I'm no different. I'm really grateful to do something I love for a living. You pour your heart and soul into something and it doesn't feel like work. So focus on what you're grateful for and you'll always be happy. Think about what you don't have, you'll never have enough, which is I'll never have enough cars. That's Ask Dave. If you got any more questions, keep them rolling and we'll just do these you know, ad hoc as needed. Right, Dave? All right, man. See you guys later.